Are we going live? Are we going? Wow, who's here? Tom, Mark, the feel button. Hi, the feel button. Kyle, Blue, AIX DSP. Hey, AIX DSP. How are you? Dum de dum dum dum. Dum de dum dum dum. So me, Mr. Steve Took, how are you? Snidely Whiplash. Now there's a name. Pipeline Audio. Chris Strobel. Misha. Daniel. Elroy. How are you all? How's everybody doing? This is all rather wonderful, isn't it? Malcolm. Kevin. Oh, I'm trying to keep up. Charles. Chris. Evan. Hello in Russia. Hey, Stuart. Hey, Andy, Dennis, Sang, Miguel, Glenn from Germany, Dave, Michael, Michelle, Peter, Paul, Chris, Preet, Nick, Trip, Larry, Kevin, Navjot, Jonathan, Pat Brady, Joshua, wow, Darko, how are you? Jethro, wow, there's so many great people here. This is fantastic. All rather exciting. So what do we got for you today? What we have is a song that I recorded a few years ago now. I want to say like 7 years ago. And I did it at my old studio, which had a really large live room. So this is quite different to some of the ones I've been doing. Quite often when I do the live mixes, we have much smaller rooms because, thank you ever so much. Thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. And anybody that wants to donate to buying Eric a cup of coffee and lunch would be greatly appreciated, wouldn't it, Eric? Oh, yeah. All donations are very, very gratefully accepted. Anyway, so yes, these multi-tracks are to be downloaded for free. So there's a link. And also, and I'll mention this several times in case people are tuning in and out, also what's great about this is we are going to, if you go to Produce Like a Pro and sign up for the free trial, you can post your mix over the next couple of weeks in the forum and we will critique it. Yes. And there are loads and loads of amazing people in the Academy here. I see Anita, I see Chris, I see lots of great people. Tom, all these people here, they will listen to your mix as well as me, and they will help you, because that is what we do in Produce Like a Pro Academy. Dan, how are you? Sheila, another wonderful, more wonderful members. So they will help you. I will help you. So isn't that right, everybody, Academy members? So you can do that. You can join on the free trial. You can stay if you want. Either way. And you can go into our forum and you can put your mix up there. So download the multi-tracks. So let me tell you a little bit more about it. This band is, obviously, they were a young band. They're in their 20s. But they're fans of bands like Tom Petty. For instance, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So they have a bit of an Americana feel. The singer now actually has gone solo and lives in Nashville. They're a band called The Gallery. They won, or they came second in a Rolling Stone competition, where like a Break the Band competition. They didn't win, they came second. So you may have heard of them for a bit. Thanks ever so much. Cup of tea from Michael for Eric. Anyway, so fantastic band. Really good people. Recorded in my old studio, so a rather large room. There's quite a famous photo of it. I don't know if Eric can find it easily, of the room from a not Soundgarden, Velvet Revolver's first record. The back cover is actually a photo of my studio. So you can see it in there, big blue room. And it was a great, great room. So we can talk about the miking, we can talk about the recordings, but I do think the drums are pretty special in that room. So everything faders up on 0. Well, what do you want to hear first? Do you want to hear the mix first? You want to hear the mix that I did on a Neve console? So I used to have an 8058 in there. Let's do that. Let's listen to the mix of the song. So here is the Neve mix. The compression you're going to hear on the master bus is actually a Focusrite red compressor. And all of the other compression and EQ would have been done with hardware and some plugins. It was mixed fairly hybrid, but essentially this is the sound of the Neve 8058. Give it a listen.
Sunny days and smiling faces. Isn't that where we belong? Down a road only hope can take us. Singing songs of peace and love. Singing now. Heavy hearts, they won't escape us. We cross the line when it gets blurred. Why can't we, if God forgave us? A fight's a fire, we both feel burned. We'll drop bombs all day and night to show who's in the wrong and who's in the right. Who's in the wrong and who's in the right. Empty looks on empty faces, with something stolen from our soul. Seeking gold in foreign places, never failed to sup its store. Once again we raise our voices.
All right. You get the general idea. It's a big, fat, I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, warmer sounding track. Now, why has it got all that big girth? It's massive. It's really low-endy. Well, in a great way. It wasn't done on tape. It was done on Pro Tools, but we did have a combination. We had a lovely API 20-channel console in there. We had a lot of outboard EQs and compressors, and it was just recorded the way I wanted to hear it. So what we're going to do is we're going to listen to the drums zeroed out, not even panned, and then you're going to hear me pan and balance the drums. No samples were harmed in the making of this recording. So here's the drums all zeroed out. Okay, did you hear the bleed? That's the band in the room, so you can hear live bass. This was cut with the drummer in the live room. There's also actually vocals cut in the room. I just think you might be able to hear moments. When you download the multitracks, please download them. You may hear some bleed with the vocals. And it's pretty innocuous. When I give these multitracks to somebody, sometimes they're like, oh my God, there's bleed in the vocals and the drums. I mean, it's terrible. This is the mentality we're in because we listen so much in solo, don't we? We listen so much in solo that we get concerned of bleed and stuff like that, but the bleed is pretty minimal. But you do hear, probably in the rooms, the bass. Have a listen. Oh, right. So those rooms are pretty drastic. So let's talk a little bit about the elements here. The far rooms, working backwards, are actually just a pair of 57s, nothing glamorous, thrown against the walls. And like I said, it was a fairly big room, but they're just thrown against it. They're not even, there's nothing glamorous about it. They're just getting the bounced off side. They're a little bright because they're off the sound of, you know, something as plasterboard. It's a bit of a nebulous phase polarity. It's just width. You know, it's not perfectly in phase or anything. It just adds ambience and width to it. I like them a lot. Now, the rooms, the close rooms, are actually miking the wall behind the drum kit low down. And for some unknown reason, I don't know what we were thinking, we decided to carpet like the first 3 feet of the wall low down. I think we were thinking about, you know, high end, trying to stop some super high end. I don't know what our thinking was, but that's what we did. So it's actually the reflected sound. So these are inexpensive Audix microphones. The Audix microphones were, I can't remember what they were, like $300 a pair. They're the black, basic, large diaphragm, cheapest one they make. A pair of those on the back rooms. So the first set of rooms far was a pair of 57s. These ones are a pair of inexpensive Audix. Now, they are measured in phase with the snare. So if I zoom in a little bit, you'll notice it's pretty darn accurate. It's measured equally to the snare. So you can see most of the polarity, the phase is pretty accurate. Cool. So I like it. It's a little bit weighted on the kick, you know, slightly. Hey, thanks, Joseph. That really rocks. Okay, going backwards. Overheads were a pair of 414s, AKG 414s. Let's give them a listen. As you can tell, it's a fairly big room, so there's quite a lot of bleed and the ambience into it. Sometimes I would take baffles and put them super close to the side of the kit. And then other times I would even take high mic stands and put them up against the mic stands and then drape huge blankets over them, you know, and do that. You know what I'm saying? So to get them super, super dead. But in this instance, I sort of wanted the feel of a band playing live. As many of you know, I'm a huge fan and friend of Shelley Yakis. And Shelley made Damn the Torpedoes, which is one of the greatest sounding records of all time, you know, with Refugee on it and Don't Do Me Like That. An amazing Tom Petty record. And he had told me many, many years ago that everything was tracked live in a room. And everything bled into each other. Even though we don't have a lot of bleed, I still wanted the sound of the room to be in things. There's plenty of recordings I've made where I have deadened everything down and have been in a big room, but the drums sound like boom, ba, boom, boom, ba. I didn't want this, but I did want the boofy snare. So if you listen to the overheads again, notice how the snare has that oof. So it's got it's not super low, but it's not super high. Okay, so that's the overheads. Now let's move up to the cymbal mic. Here is the cymbal mic. Okay, for those of you that don't know my drum miking techniques, you're probably all confused, like cymbal mic? What this is this is a cymbal on the ground. And usually it's like a small crash or a hi-hat that's broken or something like that. And it's down on the ground in front of the drum kit. And typically, if you could imagine, there's the kick drum here. And this is like the drummer facing out into the room. I put it down here, sort of between the snare and the kick. Well, for you back to front, it'll be this way around. So I try to sort of sneak it in there. And then sometimes we do silly things like put a chair over the top so the hi-hat didn't bleed into it. We did all kinds of craziness. And this, sometimes it was an Altex salt shaker when I had one, but this is just a 57 miking the reflected sound of the cymbal. So it gives you this harsh, metallic sound. The other thing is it went through a Joe Meek VC1, for those of you who know the Joe Meek. What it does, Anita, is it gives you a lot more of the bottom snare, and it gives you thump of the kick because it's super close to the kick. It's actually quite a unique sound. I've very often just taken that one mic and made it into the drum sound. So if I take an REQ here and just take 60 hertz here and boost it like this. So I'm just cranking the low end. Now listen to that sound. Now it's a mono drum sound. That can be the drum sound. You boost a bunch of 60 on there to bring out the low end on the kick, put a Pultec on it or something like that. All you have, and then immediately you've got a great mono drum sound. So it's cymbal on the ground between the kick and the snare, mic'd. Yes, total Dave Jordan. I stole it from him. And Dave told me he got it from, why am I blanking? I'll remember in a second. It's really obvious. John Leckie. He told me he got it from John Leckie. Queen Purple just said, such a good idea with that broken cymbal. Reminds me of the stuff I used to do when I was 15. Thanks for reinvigorating my creativity and inspiration. Absolutely. Never let that childlike creativity disappear. I mean, obviously we go through those things sometimes where we mic an instrument, then mic the room every single time with 5 different mics. And before you know it, you've got 400 tracks in your DAW because everything has a room mic on it. We all go through that. And then we come out the other side and realize we have to be selective. But ultimately, that little child, that excitement when you read the back of the record and you listen to a song and you love it and you see the name of the engineer and you see the studio, and maybe sometimes they give you a little hint, of something they may have done, and you go online and you find some interview with that great engineer or great producer or the musicians, or you watch a behind the scenes making of the album. That's the little child you want to keep going, because the records I enjoy making, either as an artist, when I was an artist, or now as an engineer and producer, have this element of creativity that we absolutely love. This wasn't recorded through a Neve, it was mixed on a Neve 8058. I had 2 rooms, so I had an old API console that was frankly falling apart and only had 12 of the 20 channels working, but that's okay. It was all we could afford when we put it in there, and we started to try and rebuild it. We bought it super cheap and we started to try and fix it up. But we had a lot of other pre's that we accumulated, which were like the BAE 1073. I had one of those. I had 3 pairs of BAE 1272s, and I was just slowly evolving and getting stuff going. And this is a Joe Meek VC1. Okay, so I'm going to take that EQ off, and now we're going to go up and check out some more stuff. Here's the hi-hat. For those of you that remember, my hi-hat trick is a 57, and it was an Audio-Technica 4041 tape together. So it's the two, it's like the 57 and the 4041 taped together and then blended on the console. Let's go to somewhere that plays a hi-hat. Here's an interesting thing. Let's go back and listen to those overheads. Okay, so what I'll do is, like, those overheads were spaced. Sometimes, thank you, Danny. Sometimes I will find that the spaced overheads are great, but they become cymbal mics even when they're in phase with the snare. They give you a beautiful wide version of the snare, but when I XY, I tend to get more width out from the center. Does that make sense? So at the moment, the hi-hat's about 40% in my right ear. I don't know what it's like for you. It's about there, maybe 30%. However, I want to go a little wider on it, so I'm going to come a little wider. We can go like 50 or 60. If I'd done an XY over the top, it would have been more like that. Always good to try and keep that phase really, really nice. Okay, so toms were, at this time, I think I was still using the good old-fashioned 421s. So I'm doing this all, by the way, from audience perspective. If you're a drummer, feel free to do it from, from the perspective of the drummer. Thank you ever so much, VJ. I really appreciate it. Lunch on me. Thank you. Is this thing on its home speakers? Wonderful. So I usually put the tom, because it depends on your kit, but typically on most of the kits I'm recording, the snare is here. I'm doing it from your perspective here. So the tom would be there and the hat's further around the outside. So you're usually looking at about 20 to 30 on the rack tom and about 40 to 60 on the hi-hat. You wouldn't have the hi-hat at 20 because then where would you put your rack tom? You'd have to put it over the center of your snare, which obviously wouldn't make any sense. So I'm usually about 20 and 60 on my toms. Some people go wider for effect. I know people that will go like almost, full left, full right, and have hi-hat right spilling on the left-hand side. I try to keep it how the overheads see it. So the drum kit is my Ludwig Vistalite. Yes, this is a plastic drum kit. I am not kidding. It is a blue Ludwig Vistalite. I think we have some session photos from it. I don't know if they're handy here. We have a nice fun drum trick we're going to talk about in a bit. Okay, so snare bottom and top are both 57s. I'll go to the snare top first. And the snare is my Ludwig Supraphonic. Good question, Kyle. These days, I don't go as wide as I used to. When I first recorded this, my left and right overheads were full-blown left and right. The more I've been doing this, the more narrow I get. So I might actually make drums 70 or 80% and have the guitars spill out the side. we'll play with that. That's the whole idea of mixing live, so we can talk about all those eventualities. Now let's throw in the snare bottom. It's nice. It's a little ringy. It's a little wrong. I like it. Okay, I'm going to go to the top for a second. The kick in is a D112. It is going into a 1272. That's a BAE 1272, which for those of you that are in the know, that, or want to know, I should say, is an old Neve style line amp that has been converted into a mic pre. So that is a D112 inside a blue acrylic Vista light. It goes into a BAE 1272, which is being compressed lightly with a 160, a DBX 160, not the VU, but the X or the XT, I'm blanking, which I think costs about $150 on eBay. But it is going into something else I bought on eBay, a Uri 546, which is a stereo parametric EQ. It sounds good. There's a little bit of dampening in there. Sometimes what I'll do, I think definitely I can hear there, is I might put like a blanket up against the beta head and then put it up against there. And then what I'll do is I'll maybe take a mic stand base or a brick or something heavy and just lean it against it so that there's a little bit of weight on there. Now, you can buy really fancy dampening rings and all that kind of stuff. Pro Drum on Vine, for anybody who's in LA, sells all of that stuff. Best drum shop ever. We love them and just great people. We went and bought some stuff from them only last week. Anyway, so you can definitely buy dampening rings, but if you want to save money, and you can put a blanket inside there between where the rim is on the drum and the head itself, just roll it up against it and then put something heavy-ish so it just weighs against it. So it's just leaning up on it. And that's what we did. Now, the kick out is actually exactly as it says. It's not on the head itself. It's actually pulled back. So it's pulled back quite far. I pulled it back almost probably the same length of the kick drum away. So imagine here's your kick about this size. Now double that distance, and I don't know if you're going to get this in shot, but here's the head. So here's the mic that far away. Why do I do that? Well, it allows a little bit of the low end to develop. And the great thing about this kick out is there's no EQ, no compression, nothing done to it. It's going straight from a 1272, one of the BAE 1272s, straight into Pro Tools. Nothing done to it whatsoever. But it's one of my favorite mics. It sounds very, very natural. I'll lean very, very heavily on that sound. To me, that sounds like what a kick drum's supposed to sound like. And there's nothing done to it. It's just that. What I used was the Sennheiser. I believe it's the 602, if I am correct. I'm going to look it up live here just to make sure that I'm because I want to give the mic its props. And the great thing about the 602, the 602, is it sounds like that straight away. It really does. Huge fan of it. So, there's all the drums. Now, let's do a really, really quick balance. We did our panning. Let's do a quick balance. Listen to the low end of that kick. It's fantastic. That's just the kick out, giving us all that low end. The cymbal mic is you're talking about the mic on the ground. The microphone is pointing at it, so you hear the you don't like the 602. Well, that's the sound of the 602. I mean, I like that. So if it hasn't worked for you, I totally understand. But it definitely works for us. Now, you've got to be careful when it comes to room mics. You want them there, all of the room mics down here, for instance. You want them, but you have to remember when you're working with room mics is that they're obviously hearing, you're obviously hearing late. So there's a couple of people maybe that don't understand this, so are pointing it out. They're hearing a bit of flamming on the kick. Well, that's going to happen if you take a room mic that is obviously delayed and use it super, super loud in a mix. You're going to hear kick, 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 snare, 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 snare. Of course, that's why you use your room mic strategically, and we can talk about how to do that. So what we're doing at the moment is we're going to favor our close mics. So this is just a blend of just the close mics. And I'm bringing down all of the rooms to a level where I'm happy with them. And have a listen. Krim's asking about gating. Well, we'll get to that if I want to do some gating. I may not want to do some gating. Cool. Now let's talk about some subtle things that you can choose to do if you wish. Now, for me, one of the things I like to do is to make sure that there is no phase issues between microphones. So what I'll do is, because I love the sound of the kick out, is I will go, so we go to samples here, and I will measure out how delayed the kick in is to the kick out. So if we do that, hopefully this makes sense to you here, it says 146 samples. So let's try this. I'm going to go and grab some time delay. Now, some people like to move files around. I don't, because I like them to, because if you start editing and you've moved files around, it can get pretty horrible. So now I'm actually running a time adjuster on my inside kick, so it's now hitting the same as the out kick. Have a listen. I'll go in and out of bypass, and you can have a listen. I can really hear a massive difference on the low end. Hopefully you've got headphones that can do it, or speakers that you can hear the difference. What I'll do is I'll solo those two to make it easier for you to hear. And we'll take a little bit of section and put it into loop. We're in loop playback. And you can go in and out of bypass, and you can hear the amount of low end that has just been created. I almost feel like I just want this little piece. Hopefully you can hear that. It's quite evident to me. I'm not sure what you're monitoring on, but that little subtle nudge back of 146 samples over, I think we're at 48K. It's quite huge. You are hearing, no, I'm not listening to any kind of floor sub as well. I'm not sure what you mean. So anyway, yep. So basically that's a massive difference for me. Getting those kind of things in phase is huge for me. Okay. Next thing I will do, because I don't worry about getting low end out of my overheads. I don't. The overheads aren't there for low end, so I can wipe off that super, super low. But I do like the body that overheads give snares. So here's another thing that I might get into doing. So and that is to delay my snare to my overheads. So let's take the snare top and see how much that would delay. So it's saying 121. Now the snare top, I'm just copying that down. Now, I don't know what your DAW is and whether it has time adjuster, but I highly recommend something like this. Like I said, people do move the files. I'm not a big fan of doing that, but only because if you start editing, it can get quite messy. So now I'm doing the snare bottom, which doesn't seem to require quite the same amount of movement, but let's do a couple of different measurements to try and get something average. We'll go to 78. So hopefully this is all making sense. Now, people do move files to correct phase. I personally don't do it, but just because if you move it, then start editing and you're in the middle of an edit, all kinds of chaos can come in. And I can't tell you how many things we get to mix over the years where all of the phase relationships between the drum mics happen really weirdly. So, you know, but if you feel confident in doing that or you want to consolidate your edits before you do it, that's great. So let's have a listen. So now here's the overheads with the snares. Let's take a little area here. Oh, that difference is massive. Please tell me you can hear that. Okay, so now I've nudged the snare back a few samples to my overhead, which is kind of my Bible. I want that because that's a view of my kit. So have a listen. Here is, if you can see over here. So look to your left and you can see and hear me taking the phase movement off. Huge difference. Absolutely massive difference. Hopefully, I mean, my blue headphones, I can hear a huge difference. And if your ears aren't quite tuned to it yet, it doesn't matter. Wherever you're at in your career, you will, if you learn the tips, you'll start understanding them. I remember when I first started using compressors, I was like, what the heck is going on? You know, inverting the audio track. No, because if all the mics are pointing the same direction, they're all hearing the same way. They just have different time delays associated. The only time you'd have to invert is what you do, for instance, on the bottom snare when I record it, because the mic's coming up underneath. I reverse the phase, flip the polarity, whatever you want to call it. I say both because everybody gets confused, but you understand the point. So when the waveform is going up, because the mic is looking from that, it'll be seeing it the opposite way. So I flip it on the console or on your mic pre. On the snare bottom. Now, some people don't have the ability to record it like that, so you could do it afterwards, you could invert it afterwards, but we don't need to do that in this because the drum mics are all seeing the same way, meaning overhead mics are pointing down, snare mic is pointing down. So if they're all pointing the same direction, you will see the wave file going the same way. I have heard people talk some mumbo jumbo about you need to reverse it. Actually, I can only think of one person who talks about that. All of the engineers that I grew up working with would never do that. They'll keep it all pointing the same way. But you might be in a weird room. Something weird might happen. Whatever works, I suppose, in the situation, whatever sounds the best and gives you that low end and that body back, then do it. But this is what's giving us the body back. So this is just those mics with the overhead so far. This is what we have. Let's put a little bit of the room cymbal in just for the schnizzle. That's the cymbal on the ground. Like I say, it's delayed a little bit, so it can add a bit of a flam. So there's a couple of things we can do with it, but let's not worry about it at the moment. We'll just bring it down, so it's just adding a little taste of something. And let's bring in those close mics. Now we'll go to the far mics. Thanks everybody for watching. Nearly 600 people. That is amazing. And did you all download the multi-tracks? Please don't forget to download the multi-tracks. Oh, and hit the like button. That would be amazing. If those 600 people could hit the like, that would be absolutely incredible. And feel free to share. So if you want to download the multi-tracks, you can mix along with me. The other thing is you can also join the Academy for free for 14 days, meaning you can go and do the trial, and you can mix this song, and if you put it up in the forum, other people will come in and help you. We will critique it. We will help you. There are thousands of people in there who care and really, really help. It is an amazing community. There's lots of Academy members here who can second and third that emotion. So please hit the like button and share. I really, really appreciate it. I really like where we're at already. Let's put in the hat. Let's put our toms in. And basically, if I go out, going back into soloing the whole thing, here's now the drum kit sound. Let's get a little bit more rack. The drummer is the band's drummer. It's actually the singers. I'm going to bring my mic down a little bit here because the music's super quiet compared with it. Try and rebalance this a little bit. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is what we've done is we've balanced, we've adjusted for phase and polarity, and now we have a mix that sounds like a drum kit, and it sounds like a good drummer in a room. He was great. He's a great drummer. He's got good groove, good feel. Everything's fantastic. You know, I really, really appreciate the performance. I appreciate this band. There's something special about them being brothers, at least two of them, and all growing up in the same area in Massachusetts. They have that thing that we love about bands. So they bring it. But listening to that, what are the things that you're hearing? What I'm hearing is a little bit of inconsistency. The snare's a little inconsistent, but we're not going to harm any samples in this. The first thing I want to hear is consistent body. Ranjit from Nepal. There you go, Ranjit. And I think a little bit more body on the toms could be really, really nice. Everything can be fantastic here. So let's do some subtle things. Now, I know there's a lot of opinion about whether to EQ on individual tracks or things bust together. I go with my ears. And so what I do is I will try, first of all, I'm just going to take this snare. We're going to listen in solo. Obviously, many people, well, not many people, one, Bob Clearmountain tells us he never listens in solo. And I believe him. I believe him because he's the best mixer in the world, bar none. His mixes sound phenomenal. He's one of the nicest guys in the world. But we are deliberately listening in solo because we're teaching here. So you can hear the direct thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into solo here. I'm going to go and grab something Pole-Tech-ish. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want something with really generic EQ. We could do it, so if I just go and grab the Puig Tech, which is, Jack Joseph Puig's modeled Pole-Tech. So what I can do is I can go to 100 hertz here, and I can boost it. And have a listen. It's good. It's not great. It's not the fault of the EQ. It's the fact that it's really hard for it to pick up stuff down there. So one of these things we've been doing a lot recently is boosting below to give a proper shelf. Because one of the things, let me demonstrate that again, because I don't want to move too quick so that you're not hearing what I'm doing. I'm going to try and slow this process down so by the end of the couple of hours that we're going to be here, you really learn some new things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and grab that EQ, and I'm going to boost the 100 dramatically. And you're going to hear it. You hear it, but you also hear it. You hear like, ooh, ooh. It's not that pretty. So one of the things we always used to do on an SSL or any kind of classic mixer, but particularly the SSL, was to boost and cut in the same area, but also to go sometimes below the area that you want to work at. So what do I mean by that? So let's go and grab like an REQ. So I'm just going to go and grab an REQ down here, which is, if you don't have an REQ, that's fine. It's just an EQ I go to, which I feel is like my version of a generic EQ. It's mine. I'm going to go to a 4-band because I just realized I might try a couple of different things. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to 60 hertz here. Move this out of the way. Turn that off for a second. So around about 60 hertz. I know this sounds silly, and boost it. And you're probably like, what? Nobody boosts 60 hertz on a snare. No, nobody does. Except for people like Roy Cicala, Jay Messina, Jack Douglas, and of course, Shelley Yakus. You boost below where you want to hear. Why is that? Because you get this beautiful curve. Instead of this bumpy EQ, kind of like lump of EQ, you get a nice curve. It is what the great guys and girls that we love would do. They would go lower than they want to hear. Now listen, on and off. It's much, much sweeter because it's doing this beautiful. Here's the area that's being affected. It's pulling up a little bit too much kick. However, that's why we grab over here. And we come in and we do this. You see what's going on? We're getting this out of the way of the kick now. And we're creating this nice, gentle, low lift. It's an old trick, but it is boosting the lows below and creating this beautiful shelf here. It's a nice little hillside. Have a listen. So you're getting that body, but you're not hearing of this like pointed blump of EQ. because, you know, we want about 220, 150, 100, around about here-ish. But if we do this, let's demonstrate it. Let's demonstrate it. Let's turn this off and this off. And let's do this. So it's bringing out a lot of horribleness. Okay, and that's the area where typically you would expect to hear the lows on the kick. Oh, sorry, on the snare. Did he just say kick? On the snare. Okay, now let's turn that off. Try to remember that, where we were at. Turn this on. Turn this on. So much sweeter. Hopefully, you can stop afterwards and rewind and go and listen to that. But it's just a simple thing that you would do on a console. You would boost like some of the fundamental area and below, and then cut right up to it. And it's just sweeter than going in and going, oh, I want to hear more 100 hertz, and just boosting this big blob of 100 hertz. That just becomes unmusical. You're trying to just bring in more body. I feel like one of the things that I learned when we were talking with Michael Beinhorn about all of those great records was how, when he got those massive, big, fat, tubby, enormous drums on Soundgarden's record, when you listen to how fat with a PH, just how much lows are in those drums, and I said, how did you do that? Or the low end on Marilyn Manson's bass sound, I'm just like, how do you get it to be so massive? And it's the things he would do. He had the drums in the Soundgarden record on a drum riser, and underneath he had subs, not very loud, but just subs of the drum mics bleeding into it ever so lightly. What did it do? It made the room bassier. It made the room, quote unquote, hate the word using it, warmer. It made everything feel fatter and just bigger and had more lows going on. That is what we're doing here. We're going in and we're just creating more warmth. We're not pinpointing and doing heavily EQ'd stuff, because frankly, that ends up sounding like complete poop. And it ends up sounding so EQ'd. How many times have you mixed something and you're doing it all like, you know, by looking at the waveforms on your fancy plugin going, oh, it says there's too much frequency, I better pull it down. This one says there's a bit missing, I better pull it up. And you end up with this like skyscrapers and small houses, and then you listen to it and it sounds like, yeah, you hear all of these EQ moves and you don't hear this big fat snare that you want to hear. Okay, now we're going to go and grab some high end here. Let's soften that Q. Come down a bit. Here we go. Mid-rangey snare. Immediately, huge difference, absolutely huge, enormous. And I'm not afraid to apply EQ in a way that sounds good. There's a lot of like, oh, you know, don't you use the linear phase when you're doing this? Because I see some phase issues. Who cares what you see? How does it sound? How does it sound? These are fantastic tools. I mean, it's great that Waves have introduced this now, that you can see what you might want to EQ. That's great. But first of all, hear a problem and then use the tool if you can't quite figure out what it is to improve it. You know, I watched some stuff with Andrew Sheps recently, and these kind of EQs that I've been doing for years are exactly what he does. Just general Brighton, bottom end. You know, thinking that way rather than doing like Lego blocks, you know, building a mountain range of interlocking kind of stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're doing math metal with just walls and walls of huge guitars, it's amazing what you have to do. Okay, so now I love the body on my snare, but I'm lacking something in my kick. So let's have another kick out. Now, there's a lot of bleed going into that kick out. Do I like it or not? I'm not sure. Sean, you can use a condenser as well, as long as you have something that's hypercardioid, because that's the beauty of the 57, is you, on the snare mic, is you have quite a tight cardioid pattern. A standard condenser on it can be absolutely amazing, but for any of you that know, if you use a regular small diaphragm, you've either got to build some little housing around it, or you've got to be careful how you end up using it, or you've got to figure out a way of gating it because you're going to get so much bleed. So it's a combative thing. And I've done both. I've used condensers strapped on with 57s, taped together, done everything. Thank you ever so much, Malcolm. That is incredible. Yes, you will be able to watch it again, and you can download the multi-tracks. Amazing. We have 625 people watching. It's really incredible. Please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, subscribed, please subscribe. We love having you here. And of course, like we've been talking about, you can go and do a free trial of the Academy for 14 days. Download these multi-tracks, go in there and put a mix up. And people, myself included, will go in there and help you. Next week, or even maybe, I suppose technically this week, we couldn't we, Eric, start doing, if anybody has the time between now and Friday, we could start doing some mixed critiques on our live Feedback Friday. That's how on it we are. Okay, have a listen. All right. There are several things we can do. There's a new tool I want to talk about, and we're actually reviewing tomorrow. So come back tomorrow for this new tool. But here's the kick-in. Let's have a listen. So I like the gating on that. What I mean by is I like the separation. So what we could do is we could put a gate. We could do a couple of things. Why don't we go and grab a gate? It's the first one I went to. But take it from the live kick, the inside kick. They're both live, but the inside kick. So I'm sending from bus 1, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to key the input onto bus 1. I'm going to go pre-fade, and I'm going to mute the kick in. So I'm going pre-fade on the send on kick 1. I'll say this really slowly once again. Kick in has much, much better rejection because it's inside the kick drum. So I'm going to use it to trigger the gate of the second kick. Does that make sense? The kick out. And what we're doing is we've gone to pre-fade, so that means I can mute kick in and still send a signal to the gate, which is being keyed from the kick in. So the gate is on, kick out, being keyed from kick in. Now, it already sounds pretty good, but it's too... I don't want to kill it completely because I don't want a sound of drums going... I would on some records. There's some records I absolutely love where the drum sounds like... Sometimes I absolutely love that. So the way that I always work on this is to get the floor back in. The floor is the bleed coming through. Let's have a listen. Okay, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Just for schnitz and schniggles, I'm going to take the key input off and see what it sounds like directly on the kick. I want to hear it in the drum track before we make any decisions. So this is everything together. I like it. I like it. Okay? You can tell I don't love it. I like it. So I'm going to turn those two things off. We're going to go and try out a new tool, which we also, you know what? We're not, because we're going to do it tomorrow, because it's on the video tomorrow. And I'm going to take away all of Eric's beautiful, beautiful work that he did for the video. Eric, do you have a drum? Do you have a drum joke? Do you have any jokes?
I don't have any jokes prepared at the moment, but
Well, I need to use the bathroom. I need a bathroom break, so you're going to have to.
I can wing it.
Going to come over and wing it?
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Eric Gonzalez. Thank you. Please hit the like button, and if you want to buy Eric lunch, please feel free. Eric has been working with me now for how long?
Close to 6 years now.
Close to 6 years. Close to 6 years. And ask him any questions. What's it like to work with Warren for the last 6 years?
It's a big question.
It's a big question. I don't know if you need to put the headphones on.
True. That is very true. Hello, everyone. Yes, I am Eric Gonzalez. I'm in the back. Sorry, my voice is it's coming back. My voice was gone for a couple days, so it's a little weird. I don't always sound like this, but bear with me. Yeah, so I've been with Warren for 6 years. A lot of the Academy members, they all know me. We know each other. We go way back. Yeah, this is the moment, guys. I'm the intermission guy. I come in here for intermission breaks. Get your teas. Get your breaks. Do whatever. I'm here to just kill time while that guy does his thing. How many wax dolls does it take to change a light bulb? David Lees. I do not know. Normally, I would come up here and tell a joke. I don't have a joke prepared, and this is what happens in the Academy. For Feedback Fridays, every Friday we have a live stream where Academy members, they submit their mixes, and we will pick 10 mixes for every Friday to go through. Warren will listen to them, and we'll do it on a live stream. So it will be just like this. Everyone's in the chat. Everyone's talking to each other. Everyone's talking about, like, there'll be a mention if there's a track playing. While it's playing, they're talking, oh, maybe the snare needs a little more of this. Maybe the kick isn't as it needs a little more thump in it. It's just like this. Feedback Fridays are just like this. And at the end of the playbacks, Warren will critique. Well, critique is a harsh word. It for the lack of a better word right now. He'll critique it, but it's all positive stuff, guys. Like it's he'll point out the good that you do in your mixes, and then he'll give a couple spots here and there that you can improve on. And everyone does the same, and it's all good. It's all good stuff. It's all really fun, and we all get to hear each other's, like, how I know that with the raspy voice, we get to hear each other's opinions on mixes, and I mean opinions, and because everyone's mix is subjective, right? That's something I've learned recently, is everyone mixes subjectively. Warren mixes differently than Chris Lordology, than Tom Lordology, than all the mixes that he mentions. Everyone mixes differently, and it's not because there's a right or wrong way of mixing. Everyone just has a different view of mixing, and that's something I've just learned recently, and I've kind of been like, oh, that's, that puts me at ease, because I always felt like there's a right way of mixing and then the wrong way. Knowing that everything's subjective, you just gotta mix to what you think sounds good, and that's all you gotta do. It makes it a lot less stressful. I do not have coronavirus, guys. Don't worry. I did lose my voice. I had a cough, but I don't have coronavirus, thank God. What's the BPM of this song? If I move this guy, the BPM is 127. So, yeah. How many people are participating in the academy? As far as paid subscribers, there is over 2,000 people in the academy, and there is stuff happening all the time, constantly. People are constantly joining, and yeah. Yes, BPM 127. Now I don't know if Warren was gonna get to it. You guys saw that he was doing some gating stuff. We'll see if he gets to it. He did mention that he wants to hold off, and because it is tomorrow's video, AIX DSP has his multi-gate plugin that is out, and Warren's gonna have a review video on it tomorrow, where we basically have a tom trick where we go through, and it takes us like 20 minutes to go and clean up all the bleed.
The new one, the new plugins.
Yeah, yeah. I'm doing a little
giving away the secret.
No. It's a teaser. It's a teaser.
Although I don't know if it's a new plugin. I think it's a plugin that is new to us.
New to us, and it's awesome.
Yes.
It is a really awesome plugin. The video comes out tomorrow. I'm gonna hop off the seat, but I'm a gonna. Stay tuned.
Hop buffer. Thank you everyone for your wonderful patience there. Yeah, it's a fantastic plugin. It's not new for so many of you. Oh, we lost 100 people. What happened there, Eric? And we got a dislike. Come on.
I tried my best. I swear.
What'd you do? It's okay. YouTube tells us the dislikes are always from like rival channels and stuff like that. Because I asked once, I was like, "What do we get dislikes?" And they're like, don't worry about it." They're like, what did they say? They said, you're doing something right when people hit the dislike, because they'll be like, "Ooh." So for those of you that do like what we're doing and love the free content and love the free multi-tracks and love all the free learning and the incredible community, please do hit that like button for those of you that are into all of that stuff. And thank you for the 600 people that are online now. This is absolutely amazing. Even though we had 684 when I left, Eric. God, what happened? Sean says, what's worse than a lobster on your piano? Okay, I won't. Obsidian says, Eric did great. The joke, Warren, my dog has no nose. Oh. Yeah. You see, AX DSP says the multiband gate is 4 months old and new to everyone. Yes. Well, we're going to do we've got a whole video for you coming out tomorrow, AIX DSP. So, dun, dun, dun. And it's already edited, isn't it? Ready to rock. And AXDSP are doing a nice giveaway with us. So you have to come back tomorrow. Somebody says, what's the biggest single lesson you've learned with your time with me? What is the biggest single lesson? Work your ass off?
Yeah, really. That work ethic.
Yeah, we work ridiculously long hours here. It looks like there's some chats here you have to get rid of. Looks like we got yes, and somebody says when you're getting dislikes it means you're reaching new people. Marvelous. But if you can like and share, that would be absolutely amazing. Don't forget to download the multi-tracks, and you can try out the free 14-day free trial on the Academy and put your mixes up in there, and we will critique them and we will help you. And on Friday we'll try and listen to as many of these as we possibly can. Oh wow, all kinds of crazy things here. Can you get rid of all of these?
Yeah, I'm on it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, and this is what I love about the thought process, the fact that we're doing this slowly and we're talking about it. Hopefully this feels slowly to you all. Sorry, I'm hiding all of these. What's up with the spammers? I don't know. Yeah, lots of spam bots. No, it's not hacked. We're not being hacked. It's just because we got a lot of you online. There's so many great people on here. And so they try to get in here and spam, you know, when there's good, successful, live chats going on. So, and I'm trying to do them. Are you having a problem keeping up? Because I can do it if you like. You want to swap? Yeah. Ruining it for everybody else. It's definitely a real kit, yes. All right. I think Eric's starting to get on top of deleting them. Thank you ever so much, Toy Town Records. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Gordo. Always great to hear from you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this kick in, because we were talking about how the kick out has like loads of low end and is super fat and super happening. Well, let's do some stuff. And boost that. Let's have a listen. So here's some 60 on and off. Now, what's interesting is I feel like I want to go a little bit lower, like we've been talking about. Have a listen. Now, what's happening is the way a drummer plays is the bots are saying it's interesting that there's a lot of bots here. That's really fun. So the way a drummer plays the kick drum is if they lay the kick pedal into the kick drum. I know I've been talking about this for about 5 years since I started the channel, so you'll probably hear me say this over and over again, and I've noticed other channels recently have been talking about this, so hopefully the message is getting out. But if you imagine this is the pedal and the beat is hitting the kick, if a drummer can do this and can bounce back, you'll get a but if it lays it in, you get thup, 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 thup. And what we've got here is kind of a combination of both. So what happens is, like, sometimes he's letting it ring. So have a listen. Like, that's pretty nice. Like that double hit there, he lets it bounce back both times. That one he laid in. Could you hear it? That one was like laid in. Cool. So you're hearing that. Pretty crazily. So what I've done there is I've actually gone below, like we were talking about, and boosted pretty heavily because I want a bit of. I don't mind a little bit of extra sort of lows below where it is. And this microphone is in. This is the D112 inside. Let us grab here. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually going to high pass this at about 30. I'm going to go to the minimum here. So my, it's never going to get rid of everything. And that's the whole point. I'm not trying to get rid of everything. I'm just trying to control the low end. Cool. Now, the other thing I love to do is to pull out some of those low mids. So let's find some of that ugly area. To me, typically, if I go to about 350, and if you know me, you know I do this all the time, and pull out some of that area, have a listen. Let's widen the cue. Wow, see what it did with that snare bleed? Now, what's happening here? I want a bit more attack, so I'm going to go in actually about 2.5 and start with that and have a listen. Now, I'm starting to like what it's doing. We could get more aggressive. We could put like 7K and above and put that up and make that super like, make it anthraxy on the kick. However, one of the things I notice when you start getting carried away with like this low end boost, this low mid cut, and this high mid kind of exaggeration is you get a lot of build up in this area of unwanted. And this is a secret trick that I haven't yet seen all the YouTube channels jump on yet. A lot of people that are teaching aren't quite at the place where they understand what they're teaching yet. So they're not talking about like stuff like this, but we've been talking about this about 4 or 5 years now. And that is, and if you're shelving your kick at about 60, come to about 80 to 100, so we'll dump it somewhere in the middle at like 90, and cut. Yes, cut it. And you'll get rid of the Now it's starting to be just a little bit tighter. You hear it's just like less. So why is that important? Well, you might think to yourself, again, I must stop and say, we're in solo so we can teach. we are talking about being in solo because we really want to show people so they can focus, because not everybody's at the point. Some people are like, oh, this is rudimentary. I totally understand, but this is really important to teach. But what we're doing here is we're creating a little bit of room here for, yes, the bass. And you get a build up between multiple kicks and stuff. This can get quite painful. It's suddenly like there's no room for the bass to shine. Now, another thing we can do, now that we've EQ'd this to be a little bit more aggressive in the high mids, a little bit more oomph down there, is to compress it lightly. Let's compress it. Again, we'll go for something really straightforward. We'll go to one of like Waves' R comps, which is the Renaissance compressor, which has been around forever. This is the new looking one. And we'll just compress it lightly. Now, one of the things you can, which is wonderful that of course we can do, is we can take a section and loop it and try to just, so if you see here where it's, I'm using visual cues, but if you see there's a transient here, and have a listen, it's loud and then it gets quiet. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we shave off that transient and just only tap here. So have a listen. Okay, so now we've got like, let's play with the attack time. It's hitting everything really aggressively. Go the other way. Okay, it's not too super aggressive. We'll hit this. We've got the warm, we've got smooth, we've got electro, we've got opto style compressors. I tend to start with default and sort of take it from there. So gentle compression. Let's bring in the kick out. Let's bring on the gate. Let's go back to the key input coming off of the kick in. Fantastic. So I like what's going on now. Again, remember, we're doing a very natural, no samples are harmed during this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bust these. Yeah, I'm going to bust these. Now 2 is open, so I'm going to grab that. So now what I've done is I've made a blend that I'm happy with on that kick. I've made a blend that I'm happy with on that kick, and I am going to go kick, sub, and we're going to listen to those 2 things together. Almost don't like the gate on at all. Eric Crawford says, Eric is a cool name, Eric. Apparently it is.
I 100% agree.
I'm really enjoying this. Now, there's cymbal bleed now. I've just got to decide whether it's worth it. Let's have a listen together. Now, I'm going to copy down this compressor here onto the kick sub. I'm just going to give it a little bit tap of compression. Yep, taking the gate off. It's quite a lot of build-up for tomorrow's video. Have you noticed that the bots are all doing oddly specific audio stuff? I wonder which channel feels like it has to do that. Great. Whatever cages we're rattling, yes! This is really good. One of the things we were talking about the other day is this is the time to be helping and doing stuff for free. And this is just really, really good. You know, this is all about, and I know everybody's trying to sell products at the moment. We're not trying to sell. There's so many of us sequestered away in isolation and all this kind of stuff. That's, you know, and we have such an amazing community of people that help each other. So I know people are envious of that, but you know what? It's a fantastic thing that we have this. So thank you ever so much for everybody who's here and is so wonderful and supportive. All right. I am now going to pretty much take this and do, this is an EQ now of both the elements of the kick together. I'm really digging it. I'm going to go in and do a couple of things. This is advanced warning. So what I'm doing is some of the EQ moves here might not make any sense because they are going to be to allow room for the bass. So I'm actually taking to about 90 or 100, and I'm going to cut here, come in about here, and just widen that up. You might be like, what is he doing? This is basically because this is where my bass guitar is going to live, and I don't want too much of a build up there. Now, that sort of area where you see I'm high passing at about 20 or 30, I'm high passing it there because it is unnecessary, but I'm also focusing it. That's so much low-end energy, which is barely audible, probably not through these headphones in a million years, probably not through most of your speakers unless you have huge subs. But it's going to take away a huge amount of energy going to your master bus. So huge amount of low end on the kick, all live. Now let's go to our snare. And we're going to bus those two elements together. So far, we haven't built any reverbs or anything fun like that. We've been keeping this super... went stereo. Don't need it to be stereo. Mistake! How dare he? Whoops. So mono auxiliary. You'll see me use some stereo sources when it's things like, obvious things like, if we did end up using a sample, which I'm not intending to, but if we did, quite often samples have ambience built into them. Okay, so let's have a listen to that snare. Again, I'm not favoring using any kind of gate yet. I did notch the individual kick tracks as well as them together. That's quite what I'll do. Is I actually like the natural sound of the kick out, so I didn't do much to that. But I did a lot to the kick in to boost the lows and get it really full so it could compete. Then I combine them together and then I EQ'd the two together. It's not what I always do. This is dependent on the track. So when you download these multi-tracks, have some fun with them and try your stuff out on your own. See what you want to do. As Matthew Sweet said, there's no mistakes, just happy little accidents. I love that. Okay, so now I'm going to grab another EQ, just of the overall snare sound. Let's have, I'll go to high pass here, like about 60 out of the way of the snare, but at the same time I'm going to boost quite a bit. Have a listen. I like what's going on. I'm also going to go quite high here above the snare top. Let's put the whole drum track together. Oh, that 18 dB at 8K. Yeah, I've seen that happen, but also I've heard the mixes and they're so unbelievably bright. You know, I think, you know, as mixers get older, they, you know, one of the things that you have to do as you get older and your high end starts, you know, coming down is you have to be aware that, yes, you know, you're 25 years old and you're putting 3 dB or 6 dB, like here, 6 dB of 10K-ish area. That can't be 18 dB by the time you're 65 or 70, because, you know what I mean, you don't hear it anymore, but people do. So got to be very careful with high-end boost. You know, Jim Scott is an amazing engineer, producer, and mixer, and I got to work with him, and I do need to interview him soon. Super talented, and he's like, it's acquired knowledge. You know, 2 clicks on the Neve is what you want. And you've been doing this for decades and you know what to go for. You know, it's always a combination of using your ears and the acquired knowledge that you get. You don't go in and go, well, I can't hear that. My speakers don't produce 20 hertz, so I'm going to boost it until I hear it. You know what I mean? It's that kind of mentality. My ears don't hear 20K anymore, so I'm going to boost it until it starts affecting the frequencies below it. We have to be smart about how we use our ears and how we use our skills. Now, as it stands, the only thing, I mean, there are so many more things we could do, and we will do, but that is already a drum sound. That already sounds like something that I could use. Okay, so things to watch out for. I love the low end that we've got going on in the kick now, but let's see if we can clarify it by listening and finding unwanted low end. Now remember, these are the far room mics. They're a pair of 57s on the walls in a big room. Yeah, the kick is huge, and it might get smaller. It's absolutely fine. It's like we're thinking about this in terms of, like, you know, we're thinking about this in terms of what's going to work. You know, it might be that this is too much once we start putting other stuff in. But if you go back to the mix that I did, there was a lot of low fatness in it because, you know, the original one was mixed on a Neve 8058 console. Now, to me, those wide mics are literally just that. They're just wide for the heck of it. They're not phase coherent. They're just a way of getting a beautiful way of listening to, listening to the kit. But I'm going to pull down. So I'm just getting rid of some lows and some low mids. Not that it sounds particularly boomy or anything, but any of the unwanted low lows that don't need to be there are going to create clarity for the kick direct mic. Now I'm actually going to copy that EQ setting to the close room mics. Oops. That was pretty hilarious. I was adjusting the wrong one. I was just finding the snare. So there's a lot of snare mid-range here. There's a lot of ugly there. And then okay. That's just a nice brightening effect of those. Now, one of the things you can do with those room mics, if you like, and when you download the multitracks and you can try it, is you can exaggerate the size. So maybe on those close room mics, let's grab a generic reverb. Let's go to a Deverb, which is a free reverb that comes with Avid, Pro Tools, whatever yours is. So now, for me, the kick is too pan to one side, so I'm actually going to bring this in. Now it's more centered, so I actually brought the left-hand side in. The snare's lost in the mix. Are we listening to two different mixes? The snare's so loud. What are you listening on? Yeah, it's loud. Okay, but talking of snare, we're going to put a little bit of compression on the master there, on the snare sub. Doodle-doo-doo-doo-doo. Now that room close that I just put some reverb on and blended down, I'm bringing it up. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody who's here. This is amazing. Have you downloaded all the multi-tracks yet? Have you done it? Remember, you can do the 14-day free trial in the Academy, meaning in the next 2 weeks, you can mix this and you can put it up in the forum and people will critique it for you and we'll come in and listen. Sorry?
30-day free trial.
Oh, we extended it to 30 days. I forgot. That's my fault. 30-day free trial. So you get a month for free. For free for a month to talk mixing and have people help you. It's amazing. Please hit that lovely like button. There is nearly 600 people. If you could hit the like button, that'd be amazing. So what I like about that close room is what I've done is I've taken a pair of room mics. I'm never afraid to do this, and I've put on a reverb, and it's at about just under 50%. So it's like reverb added to room mics, and I like that it's creating. And the other thing is like the EQ that we applied to the room mics is really important to talk about. So we got rid of this low lows. We dipped out some low mids, so it helps the toms a little bit, which we haven't got to yet, by the way. And we boosted some highs and high mids, meaning it's a little bit more exciting. Sometimes I'll add saturation if the cymbals are overplayed, but I think he did a pretty good job. We worked very heavily. From this record, this was the first record I did with them. I did 2. This first record, I did 10 days of pre-production. 10 days. And those 10 days allowed me to, get working with the drummer to play simplistically, play, get a balance between his kick snare and his hats and his cymbals. Because most drummers, the younger drummers I work with, tend to come in going, whoosh, and boop, de, boop, boop, de, shh, and then their toms are like, blah, 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 blah. So I worked very heavily on getting the drummer to be precise and concise. Precise on the tom hits, precise on the kick, and precise on the snare, and then play the cymbals balanced with the rest of the kit. You're going to find as you do this more and more, when you work with drummers that have done sessions with great engineers and producers, they will have been beaten up. Like most of the drummers I work with, the hi-hat is about that far away from the snare. Guys that have barely done any sessions will come in with the hi-hats right close to the snare. And engineers hate it because all you get in the snare, of course, is hi-hat bleed, and you have to build all this kind of stuff around it. The longer you've been doing it, you work with Vinny Caliuta, and it's like this far. Blair Sinter, this far. All of the big session guys out here, all super far away. And that's what people do. I'm actually, without doing anything on the toms, and tomorrow you have to tune in for the tom trick, without doing anything on the toms, I'm pretty darn happy with that. Please hit that like. And please share. It's fantastic if you share. Now there's a ton of tom bleed. So we have a trick that we do, and the new plugin that we're going to use does it for us. And tomorrow you're going to see that. But this was the trick. So we would separate out of the toms, and we would gain down the bleed in between. So you go through quickly, have a quick listen. Like this. You go through, you find it, and then what you can do, of course, you can do it in this version of Pro Tools. You can clip gain it down. I usually go down about -18. And you clip gain it down. Like so. And then you can put a fade in here. Like this. Like so. And this can take, it takes a few minutes. We'll do it just on the rack, Tom, so you can see. And this is a typical way. And every mixer I know has their own trick for doing this. And -18 is what I learned from Mark Endert, for those of you that know Mark's incredible work. And you're getting the idea. It's probably about 5 minutes per tom, maybe a little longer, depending on how complicated the tom part is. See, here's a section here where it's like he's playing it very softly. Very softly indeed, making it a real pain in the what to do. But it is a reality. This is what happens, and you have to get creative. If there's a lot of cymbal bleed in there, sometimes what we have to do is go in there and actually gain down the high end and then blend it back in. But there are tools that we're going to talk about tomorrow that are now making this considerably easier. Doo-lee-lee-lee-lee. Cool. So I'm doing it in real time here. No like something I prepared earlier. This is what we're doing in real time. So, and I'm not working at the fastest possible rate because I can't really talk and work fast on this stuff. But you can see the kind of detail work that it will take. And I much prefer this to gating. But like I said, there's new tools available that make this faster with the plugin. And we will demonstrate that tomorrow. So please stay tuned for that. This is going to be a great week because there's a lot of other free content coming out. This is really all about supporting people because so many of us are stuck at home, unwittingly, unknowingly, whatever the word is. And this is a perfect time to learn and to share and to help your fellow humans, frankly. Let's get together and help each other. Let's help each other learn. Let's really come together and help each other. This is a perfect opportunity, frankly, just to be a good person. This is really a great opportunity. I'm not a big fan of the traditional gate. The new plugin that we are going to demonstrate tomorrow is not a traditional gate. Oh, messy flam. Well, That's the drummer's middle name then, obviously. Messy Flam. What's your name? My name's Messy Flam. Okay. Such a dork. Okay. Sorry if this is boring the experts out here. I apologize. The reality is I like to do detail work, and I don't like to rely on a plugin unless that plugin coming up tomorrow is amazing. And I suppose it's best to show the way we did it until we got the plugin, so you have a before and after idea. Not that I mind doing this, because if it sounds great, that's all that matters, as I'm sure you're all very aware. Okay, so now we can push that tom a little bit. Excuse me, we can push that tom a little harder, obviously. And of course, you get rid of some of that. Doodly-doo. Oh, I know, Raven, that there's no experts, but there are the ones that are telling me I'm doing it wrong and they know better. What I'm saying is, like, there's no one way to do it, but I like permanence, and gates do have a tendency, at least the ones up until I've discovered this new one, have a tendency to be a little intermittent. And strip science is great, but I end up spending my whole time trying to listen and finding out that it may have taken out 1, 2 of the toms. The best way always is to listen. So what we just did there is we listened and made sure we didn't miss a tom. You know, that's the thing. If you're relying on a gate, you've got to go back and solo and work on the error and make sure it's catching every single tom. I can tell you 90% of the gated toms I hear, there's a tom that gets cut off. Yeah, see, here's the problem with listening in solo. If you don't like the ring of something, bear in mind that once you put a band in there, you won't hear it. Exactly. As Anita says, the ring will be gobbled up when the rest of the track comes in. Exactly. Wow, this is amazing. Nearly 600 people watching. Please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please download the multi-tracks. I don't know. I'm assuming Eric's been posting them up in here in the thing. That'd be amazing. Hey, the Guitar Geek, Andy, is here. Please go and like Andy's channel. He's amazing. We love Andy. He's freaking awesome. And we're going to do some more content with Andy, so stay tuned. I also heard from Trey during the stream that he just put up a video with us. So please check that out later. But afterwards, stay around. We're going to finish up in a few minutes. And stay around and leave some comments. We haven't finished this. We will do more. But we're doing like little detailed work to really see if we can make this drum track come alive. Download the multi-tracks yourself. He says the download's in the description below. Okay, hold on. Here's the multi-tracks here. So that I just posted it for you. So there's the multi-track. So click on there. The reason why I wanted you to put it there was so... okay. Oh, you're over there. Andy's here. Here we go. I just want to put in some bass and see where we're at. Here's the DI. So, yeah. So it's coming together really well. There's some low-end build-up. There's still stuff that needs to be fixed. Absolutely. Can we get 600 likes? Somebody was saying we're really close to 600 likes. Can we do it? If you haven't already hit the like button, please do. That'd be absolutely amazing. And feel free to share. Can you double like? That'd be nice. I'd really appreciate it. Leave a bunch of comments and questions below. So this is just the tracks pulled in. Don't forget, you can download these multi-tracks. So this is the song as it stands now. Please hit that like. That would be amazing. You all rock. Yay! Thanks, everyone. Wow, thanks for all of those likes and those shares. Please stick around afterwards and leave a bunch of comments and questions below. I was watching that guy, Gary V, this morning, and I don't get a chance to watch anything, really, to be honest. I'm always just working. And one thing that struck me is he said 97% of what's online is total BS. And he said all people are doing is trying to sell you things, and they're trying to get into this situation of working 6 hours, the 6-hour work week. You know what? I've said this a million times. I do not believe in that. I worked all day Sunday. I did spend some time with my family, but there's so much to be done. We're in a period here where we have to look after each other. So many people are isolated and isolating. And what I mean by that is there's people in this world who are probably sitting in India at the moment on their own, or crammed into a little bedroom shared with 5 other people with a pair of headphones on the minute listening to this. Everywhere in the world, this is a time to be sharing and helping and working. For me, it's about working hard. Eric drives here every day, sometimes an hour and a half in bad traffic to come here. And luckily now, with the road so clear, and because we're an educational thing, we're allowed to do it, he's working and he's helping, and that is amazing. And this is what it's all about. The Academy is incredible. There's so many people in there that help each other. Download these multi-tracks. Go in there, help each other out. If you're not into helping, that's okay. That's all right. But we are, and we care. And that's the reason why, all the other YouTubers, they all say to me, dude, why do you spend so much time commenting on people? That's so much work. I hear that from every YouTuber. Why do you do that? It's so much work. You know what? Because it's a community, and this is the time to be helping each other. Sorry for my little rant, but I see it with all. It's not just a make my videos a week, put my feet up, watch the income come in, bruh, passive income. No, this is a time to be helping. And like I said, normally I don't see these things, but the Gary V guy, he said that today. He said that in a post, and it was pretty powerful. Because this is the time to be working your nuts off and helping and giving back and being supportive. And that's really, really important to me. I grew up very, very poor in a really nice, wealthy area. Hence, I've got a nice nice accent. But there was 5 of us in a 2-bedroom house, and my dad, God rest his soul, was a painter, an artist, and was like feast or famine. But you know what? It was a beautiful experience, and it made me the person I am now, who wants to work his ass off. And so let's remember that. Work hard. Be supportive, come together, help each other out. It's all about community. It's not all about being superior and an expert and telling everybody they're wrong and I know and I am a genius. You know what? I'm not. I'm just like you. I'm somebody who's passionate, who loves doing music and loves this incredible world and wants to give back and help each other out. So please join us if you want. Download the multi-tracks. Lots of love to you all. Stay safe, stay healthy, help each other out. This is a wonderful time and a great opportunity to be a good person and help each other. Please stay safe, stay healthy. Lots and lots of love to you all. I really, really appreciate it. Download the multi-tracks. Please hit the like button. Come to producelikeapro.com. Sign up for the email list. Join the academy. All of the above, whatever you want to do. We love having you around. Thank you ever so much. See you all again very, very soon. Marvelous.